Hello, Avocado users and developers. Here at end of sprint number 61 with the release meeting. So let me go straight to our Trello board. By the way, feel free to interrupt me anytime if you have questions. So one thing we worked on was to propose integration testing with Avocado packages. Kleber, do you want to say something about this?
Yeah, so just a quick introduction since we have new guests. So on this first stage of the meeting, we're going to talk about the stuff that was done during the sprint that we considered finished. The next part, we're going to see the stuff that is still in progress. And for the next part, we're going to take a look at the items which we intend to work for the next sprint. So yeah, quick point about this card. So there is an initiative upstream, which is the Fedora CI. It is built on a few projects, such as standard test rows, which is supposed to be a standard interface for calling tests. We got a little bit closer to that initiative by providing a patch to the Avocado packaging in Fedora, so that we have tests executed after the package is built on Fedora. The Fedora CI infrastructure itself is still lacking the settings to run those tests on packages that are not part of the Atomic OS. So for this time being, we just have proposed those changes, and we're going to wait until the project starts running those tests just to double check on them.
Yep, and we actually have a due date on that card, so you may hear more about that in a half a year or so. Next one, Kleber worked on Python 3 packaging of AExpect. I don't think we need to talk more about it, but AExpect is our project to run from Python binaries or interact with shell. So it got RPM packaging for Python 3, which is really good. And again, some improvements and sync with our other packages for Fedora and Apple. So you should get them by installing Python AExpect on Fedora systems or RHEL if you have L enabled. Next, Kleber improved the glib plugin in order to attempt to run binaries that don't exist in order to get tests. But more of this it will be coming probably next sprint. Next, Kleber worked on drop to most of self-test in Travis to provide faster feedback and rely mainly on reviewers' full self-check. So one note about this, obviously we are not decreasing the testing of Avocado. It's just that in Travis, we found that some tests are time sensitive and Travis does not scale enough. Like the power provided by them can vary, and those tests may fail as false negatives. So we are keeping only those tests that can run there safely while still running the full checks on our machines before merging the pull request. So you may expect actually even if the Travis passes, you may see some messages from the reviewers like, okay, Travis passed, but some of those tests that are blacklisted on Travis are failing on my machine. Please address them.
And one quick note there is that since Avocado's own self-tests do not rely on Avocado itself, they are written as pure Python unit tests. We rely on an environment variable to actually choose the tests that are going to be executed. So if you see a mention of Avocado check level environment variable, it's what this is about. So anything that is equal or greater or equal than true is going to be skipped on Travis.
Basically, I don't remember the variable, but in order to rerun the test, you can use like Python, use munit test, self-test dot functional, for example, like tests basic dot and like some test name, like runner test. Like don't take this for granted, and test foo. So this would rerun the test, but even on your machine, it would not run it because it can be blacklisted. So you may need to add like Avocado. Do you remember the name of variable?
Check level.
Level?
Check level. Avocado check level.
Oh. Check level equals 99, which should give you like, which should definitely run any test that is enabled. So this is how you run those tests. But yeah, eventually you'll get used to that more often. Next, we have allow partial test output in XUnit to avoid huge files. Avoid huge files. This was inspired by actually my CI, where I had two big XUnit files, and Jenkins failed to include them. So we changed the way to execute it because there was a need of changing the XUnit size. But there is a minus XUnit max size or max hars, like check minus h for details, where you can set the maximum number of characters embedded in the XUnit results, which can decrease the size of your XUnit files if needed. Obviously, if you don't have problems, don't use it because it's cool to have embedded the full results. Next, we have use parallel process in inspect length. Yeah, this inspect is used for our self-checking, and basically one way to improve it or make it faster is to enable parallel run, which is already supported by pylint. So we did that. Next, we fixed the bug that replay of MOOC suite job did not work. There were just some minor missing attributes. So now you can replay jobs that are created by MOOC suite plugin as well as any other jobs. Then we looked at the ways to optimize bookkeeping of test statuses. Again, something inspired by running bigger jobs. Basically, on one of my systems, I run job with almost 2,000 tests, and quite fast. I got like 10 gigabytes of memory usage on the Avocado runner, which does not really look well. So Amador actually did a nice job in looking for the ways to decrease this, and I studied like other ways to decrease the size. We found out that there are some ways to even decrease it even further, but it's not worth it. So from the 10 gigs usage, we got to 130 megabytes usage, which I think is acceptable enough for the 2,000 jobs, 2,000 tests per job. But if you have problems, feel free to reach to us, because there are two other ways to decrease it even further by using hard disk and not in-memory variables. But at this point, it was decided like not necessarily, not worth it.
And one important measure in that regard is not only the final amount of memory the process is consuming, but the growth from the beginning to the end of the job, because the Avocado runner itself, it bootstraps with around 90 megabytes, so growing to 100 something is not a big deal. And it was a big deal going to some gigabytes of memory. So yeah, I think we are in a pretty good shape now, but still there's room for improvements, but let's see what comes.
Yep, obviously. And then we have Fedora standard test Avocado and Ansible roles does not fetch results. Basically, there was a problem of using older API, which was changed to the new API in order to fetch all files and not just the files listed. I mean, to fetch directories and all files in it. Next, we have pin PyCode style version on Travis. Basically, just internal thing to use always the same versions in Travis. So we have reproducible results. Then functional tests on Python 3 leaves directories behind. We used to see these quite frequently, that there were some files left behind after running self-tests on Python 3 branch. But we reworked our TMP handling and did some self-test cleanups and haven't seen those issues for about 2 weeks or so. So we decided that we declared this card as done. But obviously, if you see some failures, like, okay, there are some directories left behind, do let us know so we can improve on that. But hopefully, all of the issues were addressed. Next one was the bug in Avocado Word, where avocado -- show actually broke SSH. This was quite fun to work on because it was a timing issue in Fabric. Long story short, Fabric is not using Paramico properly, so upstream fix to Fabric was sent. And as we can't do anything about it in Avocado, I mean, nothing sane, we close this as done, and hopefully the fix will be merged. Next was DNF install is not requiring stevedore bug, and according to this, there were like bunch of big changes to our spec files regarding Python 3. And actually, this is even ongoing because there are still some Python spec file changes required during Duetus manual self-test. But this shouldn't be visible from you as a user. The good thing is that DNF install Python to Avocado should, with this release, work properly and bring all the required dependencies. And not unwanted dependencies like Python 2 dependency on Python 3 packages. Next, we had a bug. Non-existent text output field is used by tab runner. Basically, previously we cleaned our results variable to not store text output, but we forgot to update tab plugin. So Amador fixed this. So around half a year ago, we actually removed this, and ever since then, the tab results did not include the expected lines from text output fields. So you may check the tab results now. They will look slightly different. And actually, based on that, we decided to perhaps allow tweaking the level of information stored in tab results. So more will be coming probably in the further sprints. Okay, any questions so far? Looks like not. So this is already done. So this is already merged in master, and will be part of the release number 61. Now let's look at work in progress, at least the important one, because we have quite a big backlog and some of the cards are even older, usually waiting on upstream responses, etc. So let's go through them quickly. We have this Avocado VT loader reports more info on verbose discovery. You probably may have noticed an email sent recently, like about the status of this. If you're using Avocado VT, it should allow to report more details on failed discovery. So your feedback is welcome. Then we have AExpect functional test Kleber's working on. So yeah, we failed to review it on time, but basically some improved testing for AExpect package. Next one is a bug. Non-ASCII characters break YAML to MOOCs. So if you want to use things like that in your YAML files, it will break currently. And if you use it as a variable, it will break even worse. I already have some progress on this, but it's not ready for this sprint and probably won't be part of number 6 sprint. So
You still there, Lukasz? We lost your sound. You guys still there, right? Just checking if I wasn't the one that dropped.
Yes.
Okay. So let's give him a few seconds. If not, I think I can share my screen.
Mhm.
Yes, I can. Okay, let's continue and wait until he comes back. So this was the last card he was talking about, which was about non-ASCII characters on the YAML2MOOCs plugin. Next one, which Lukasz is also working on, is this card, which is about the timeout, which is an Avocado level feature, which is not currently working on Avocado VT. So if you set the test timeout on Avocado VT, it's not being respected on Avocado VT, and this is a card supposed to fix that behavior. Next one is improved test statuses. We were actually talking about this earlier, and I noticed that there was a question posted. I'm not sure if it was on IRC or on the issue or on the pull request, and we meant to actually ask Wayner what the question was again, and if there are any pending issues here, like if we can clear any confusion. Wayner?
I did ask about, but it was another card, not this one again. Well, regarding this card, I started work on it last week, and I was basically trying to understand how it works, the test case, and in the point that I reached the point that I'm able to include the cases that are suggested on the card. So
okay, so
at this moment, I don't have any blockers.
Okay, so your point is that there should be tests for 2 other situations here. Is that right?
Yes, the card asks for 2 other to include 2 cases. One is regarding the initialization of the test. It
Right.
can fail before and after the setup.
Right.
Actually, before and after the super call to super. And also the other case is calling any internal function API after the teardown, if I understood correctly the problem.
Right. I think that's correct, and it makes sense. When we have code that fails on init, we just get an Avocado crash, and that's not good. Okay. I think.
Okay, sorry guys.
Right.
My computer froze.
Good to have you back. I'll stop sharing my screen and you can take it. So we just finished the next card, which was about test statuses.
Okay, so do you see this?
Yes.
Okay. Next one is Unify Python 3, Python 2 default encoding handling. You probably saw the RFC sent by Kleber, which is supposed to cover or start a discussion about handling the encoding. And we had some pull requests. Probably some will be closed without merging because most of them should be handled by that RFC and basically style guide on how to write the code properly. And definitely we would like to see your opinion about that. Next we have Python 3 functional test checklist. Oh, it looks like this malfunctions. Basically, Kleber sent another pull request which takes care of those tests. So we lack only 2 functional tests that are related to the YAML to MOOCs encoding problems. So hopefully, I don't want to give any assumptions, but false hopes. But hopefully, next sprint we will have full self-tests coverage. Next card. Next in work in progress is enable most warning checks in Travis make check. This is an ongoing project to avoid some warnings getting into Avocado. Kleber sent another piece of
Actually, this
warnings.
is actually a good card for people to contribute if they have some time. I created a list with all the warnings if you scroll down.
Yep.
So feel free to jump and pick some if you have like a few spare minutes. The goal is, of course, not to get rid of the warnings, but like improve the overall quality and status of Avocado code. Like we already cleared up some bugs and coding errors with the few ones that we already went through. So there is definitely opportunity for improving it even further.
Yep, like the idea is to use whitelist instead of blacklist. So right now we black everything and enable some warnings, but in the future we should do the other way around. Next card is about Avocado check PR script, which is useful for maintainers and is used to run the full check on the developer's machine. It failed for Kleber, so obviously he's investigating.
Yeah,
yes.
I actually want to use this opportunity since we have few users that we know of this script. If you guys happen to have time to try it out as well, I would really like to know if this is a failure on my end or if there's anything special on Lukash environment which makes it work, because you're aware that it works for him, but not for anyone else. So if you guys want to try it out and comment here, it would be really helpful.
Yep. Basically, what that script does is it fetches the pull requests code or patches to your current branch or branch you specify, and then it runs self-check on every commit bit which was changed, which is like changed in the history. So not necessarily not just the commits that are in the pull request, but also all the commits after that pull request is merged in order to guarantee that we can bisect the code without issues.
Basically, it syncs the top of the branch with master and then considers all those patches.
Next, we have add partial LTS related changes to docs 56 to 60. Yeah, Kleber actually wants to have this for this release, so hopefully we'll get to review those changes. Basically, for you, it's not important. You may just be watching this file to see what will be in the future LTS, but in the end, we will process this file into LTS documentation and all the changes. Next, we have define and improve sources of test params. We already discussed this card last time. It's an ongoing thing which requires like more time to hammer out the details, but it should allow better params handling and not just the multiplexer to provide the params.
Yeah, the goal there is twofold. The first one is to come up with a simpler architecture for parameters which do not depend on the variance layer. And the end user experience goal is to allow for something like an INI file that users can put alongside tests and which will carry the full parameters. So it requires an architectural change, and also we want to deliver a way for users to just put a file along with the test and have those parameters applied.
Yep. Next, then we have two pict-related cards addressed by Kleber. He's basically fighting the self-tests with UTF-16 on Linux. And then we have Avocado VT at Avocado and other requirements. Basically, Python setup install inside Avocado VT may not work. I mean, you can do it in a virtual environment for Avocado, but for Avocado VT, we still write outside to like not the right directories. From Python point of view, we're using the Linux overview or Linux directories location instead of Python default ones. And it still needs a version 2, but in this sprint, the autotest part was already fixed. So autotest should be installable in virtual environment without root permissions or easy install violations. So that's for the current status of work in progress cards, and we already planned our next sprint backlog. So next sprint will be called the farewell, and we would like to tackle this outstanding issue, which is like systemd and spawn on make RPM. I recently looked at it and it seems unnecessary, so we need to investigate whether we can remove that workaround. Then the test loader adopt implementation to the new plugin architecture. Basically, the test loader itself is using something, a custom implementation of a plugin interface. So we would like to turn it into the one we are using from Cliff. And yep. Do you want to add something, Kleber?
No, just saying that for all the other bits of Avocado, you're using like an infrastructure built on Stevedore, and that is still carrying a legacy interface implementation. So
yep. Then Amador worked on this obsolete get CPU arch and add two functions instead with consistent returns. So he fixed that class to return correct results, at least. That's a good start. But we still want to improve and split the functions. If you have any opinions about that card, feel free to look at the pull request associated with it and the discussion, because currently the get CPU arch returns for power processors, it returns the version of power processor you're using, and on other architectures it usually returns the architecture itself, which is sort of inconsistent. So we would like to address that or create some sane interfaces instead. Then we have a bug, writing to standard output or standard error should not affect the runner. I mean, directly to file descriptor 1 and file descriptor 2. This one is also was introduced in previous discussed in previous release meetings. It's ongoing and it will take some time as it requires deeper cuts. And we have defaults to recursive, which is also older card, but we moved it forward and backward multiple times because also it requires some changes. Basically, we have the old interface, Avocado enable and disable, to allow to say that the current test is or isn't Avocado test. And then we introduce the Avocado recursive, which can also discover the class we inherit from their properties or their test methods. And we want to use the recursive by default, which should give similar results to the standard Python unit test. Okay, any questions about the next sprint?
Just one comment. I'll have 2 days dedicated to Avocado, and my plan for next sprint is basically start working or work on the low-hanging fruit first items, and then as I get used to the source code and to Avocado features, I can get more complicated items to work on. So that's my plan for this sprint.
Nice. And I was just thinking about the warnings card. At least on my experience, when you get to deal with those warning cards, you're forced to read some code. So that may be something you want to look at. And my last point, also in that regard, is that feel free to click on those items and turn them into cards and say that you're working on them, so it doesn't conflict.
Okay, yeah, keep in sync. Yeah, I just included my name on the card, by the way.
Nice, cool.
Great. So I guess that's it, unless anybody has a question. Let me. Oh, I don't have it enabled. Let's have a look at IRC, but I don't expect any questions there. So yeah, about the release, we are still running the self-test, the manual self-test pre-release one. I was addressing some issues, so I'm like in half of the self-tests. When we finish and have all little issues addressed, so far it's just the packaging issues on RPM side. We will have like 1 or 2 days for Clever to deploy the new pip packages and RPM packages, right, Clever?
Yes, sir.
So yeah, around the Tuesday or Wednesday, you should be able to get. Hello, Felipe.
Hi there.
So any questions?
From my side.
From anybody? We're just about to finish the meeting.
Oh, sorry.
Not a problem. You're still on time.
So you're on time for question time.
I sent an email last Friday about with a lot of review about Avocado on QEMU.
Yep.
I guess it got kicked out by the mailing list, Avocado, but then I sent it again. I don't know if you got it. It was a lot of luck.
Yes, so we actually talked about this earlier today, not on this meeting, but on a previous one, so it's a good thing you joined. So we were talking about your test series, like the tests, the Avocado test on QEMU, and we were talking to Eduardo as well about like how we could take it from there. And basically, I'm already preparing a response to your email, basically trying to point out the things that it looks like you already know that could be done differently. So One example is how to fetch the kernel file and cache it. So Avocado has a feature for that. How to skip tests on a given architecture. We can do that in a few ways. So I'm already working on that reply. And I'm not sure if you have anything, like any other question before I post that reply, or if you can help it in some other way.
I am fine with it. I will try it and maybe give more feedback and try to be on time for the next meeting. I just noticed the email, so sorry about being late for this one.
Not a problem at all.
No problem. By the way, some insight for those who don't know what we are talking about. Eduardo sent it something we were cooking up together to improve QEMU testing and use Avocado to run the tests in there to avoid, like, because in QEMU they have lots of self-tests, usually without any runners, so somebody just created a bunch of shell scripts to run that somehow. So instead, we want to propose a way to use Avocado as a runner, not to re-implement the wheel, and to provide some additional benefits like fetching the images, caching kernels, downloaded kernels, etc. So yeah, more on that front will probably be coming. And yeah, I'm sorry, I still have to review that because I got the email, but with the release, I did not have time to respond.
No problem. Yeah, my plan is to use Avocado for running a lot of firmware, not Linux based. And what I am trying to deal with Linaro guys is that we can run that on the week, because running a full system is resource consuming. But we have problem with the GPL v2, so we cannot link the blob and the binaries on the open source project to test those firmware. So this is still something where I want to discuss about with the QEMU community. But yes, I am interested to use your Avocado for that.
Nice, and we really appreciate the time you took to evaluate the work. It's provided very good feedback, and we hope to like help with the process to really enable your use of Avocado.
Thank you, guys.
Yep. You're welcome, and don't forget that we are really good at variants. So if you have a bunch of different systems to test it on, or different Flash versions, yeah, that's what Avocado is built for. So on that, I think we can finish this meeting. You can expect next sprint to take around 3 to 4 weeks as usual. So see you then. Bye-bye.
Thank you, guys. See you around.
Hey, thank you, guys.